fact, anybody that follows me on Facebook will know that I just posted a little lyric from the song Strange Love by Depeche Mode. And let's see who's in here already. Little bit. Concha, Pamela, Jasmine, uh, Karika. I think she's new or he's new. And Layla and Carrie. Good to see all of you tonight. Got a good show planned. A lot of stuff to talk about. Got a few questions, and if you have any questions that you would like for me to answer tonight, I can make that happen. Jill, what's going on? I am going to answer your question tonight, Jill, as controversial as it will be, but I'm going to do that, and thank you for asking me that. And I think it's appropriate because I was just talking to a crime blogger about this very topic. In fact, we've discussed this topic a few times, but most recently yesterday or the day before that. Ann, what's going on? How are you? I'm glad everybody can make it tonight. We're a little early. Don't want to get into the show just yet. Pamela is in South Dakota. And Pamela, yes, you did hear me coming down the hall. And if you heard my footsteps in the hall, then you also heard a little bit of Depeche Mode there. PJ is coming in from Lubbock, Texas. You know, PJ, I have an interesting story about Lubbock, Texas, while we're at it before the show starts. Back in 1985, I was on a vacation with my parents, just the three of us. We went to Colorado. We flew into Denver, went down to Durango, Silverton, rode the Silverton train, if you've ever heard that song. We went there for a week. It was beautiful. We went to the Air Force Academy, etc. And there was, when we stayed in Durango for a couple nights, there was a church group from Lubbock, Texas there. Bunch of kids around my age at the time, would have been like 15 years old. And I can remember playing Frisbee football with him in a park in Durango, Colorado in 1985, and they were from Lubbock, Texas. And it was good because I'm by myself. I'm with my parents. Then I got to hang out with these kids who just happened to be at our hotel on this trip. And it was a good time. And in fact, I still remember the name of a girl that was in that group. Her name was Audra Heath, because it's such a unique name. I remember it. And so PJ, it was a really good time. We had a really good time. And that's what I remember about the city of Lubbock, Texas. Of course, I think of it because of a couple disappearances that we've covered there. Also, Zoe Campos and Jennifer Wilkerson. But it just occurred to me that, yes, that's right. That church group of kids that I met like 34 years ago were also from Lubbock, Texas. It was a good time. So there you go, PJ. You Lubbock people are great people. It was a good time. So there you go. There's a Lubbock story for you, PJ. Carrie says, I think I know what the controversy is about. I don't. Carrie, I'm just going to call it like I see it. Karika, she's from France, or he is from France. Good to have somebody from France. I don't know what time it is there, but has to be like 2 in the morning or something, right? Thanks for tuning in. Layla, my husband used to call me the Wild One to the West. That's funny, Layla. Joyce, what's going on? Good to see you in here tonight. PJ says, cool, Durango is beautiful. Durango, Colorado is beautiful. And it was cool riding that train from Durango to Silverton and back. I remember Silverton, Colorado. The streets aren't paved. It's dirt. But it was really cool. At least they were in 1985. Chrissy, what's going on? Andy what is that? Andy from Dallas. That's funny. Carrie, Ashley, Michelle. Hello to everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Got a good show for you tonight. And let's get started. We are going to start with, I want to remind everybody that 10 days from now, August 24th, and Cherie is in here, there is going to be an Unfound meetup at the Black Walnut Cafe in Houston, Texas. Once again, August 24th, 2019. It's only 10 days from now. And Cherie is the one who will be organizing it. And I know she's in here, so maybe she wants to say something about it. She is the person that gets to type in blue. Everybody else just gets to type in black. But Cherie is the moderator for this show every week. And so that's why she is in blue and has the little wrench by her name. But she is the one that's going to be organizing that. So if you can make it, would love to see you there. Carol, hello, and LaFord, what's going on? But I wanted to mention that first. And I hope this doesn't discourage anybody from attending, but I can assure you, and I would never lie about this, that that I will not be there. Just got too many things going on. I have a disc golf tournament that coming week, and I'm not going. I'm not going to. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to be able to surprise anybody this time. But Chrissy, the Black Walnut is close by me. Chrissy, you got to make it. Cherie is the organizer, and since I know Cherie is organizing it, it's going to be a good time. Just because I know Cherie and she'll do a great job. So, of course, Houston, huge area, and I'm hoping we can have a nice showing there. I don't know how many people. Of course, at the Dallas one, there were 5 or 6 people. Of course, at Amarillo, we had quite a few people, 20 or something like that, but that was the second one that was held there. So I'm hoping that we can get a nice showing there. Laura, how are you doing tonight? Thanks for making some time for the show tonight on this Wednesday night or evening, wherever you are. So yes, anybody that is watching this, whether live or you're watching it later on YouTube or whatever, after it's already played, if you are in the Houston area and you'd like to go meet up with other people, Unfound listeners, talk about the cases, get to meet Cherie, who, of course, is one of my assistants, and she is the one that moderates the things that we do, any video, whether it's the think tank or this show. Of course, she does a lot of things behind the scenes as well. If you'd like to meet her, she and whoever else will be at the Black Walnut Cafe in Houston on August 24th. However, Cherie, I did not write down the time, unfortunately, in my notes. But anybody that's interested in that, go find Cherie in the Unfound Podcast discussion group on Facebook. And I'm hoping you can show up. So there you go, meetup. And I'll talk about this later. The Julie C. poll. That, of course, Julie's case was last Friday. I had her sister-in-law, I guess, actually technically ex-sister-in-law. But Leslie Martin was, of course, the guest for Julie C.'s episode. And I thought it was a really good episode. I thought Leslie did a fantastic interview. It was nice having it on for a second time. And I was also happy that I could fulfill my promise of saying that Leslie, when she was on for her stepson's episode with Donnie Martin, I said you'd hear her again before the summer's out. I'm happy we could make that happen last Friday. But the Julie C. poll that was in the discussion group, a large majority of you said that given the way that Ken Roy was portrayed, if we are to believe he was the one that did something to Julie, if that happened, of course, we're not sure. And once again, reason we're not sure. And as Cherie is writing right now, it is so much more difficult to analyze because Julie never said the guy's name who was harassing her. And we went through a lot of different permutations of why that might have been and the exact kind of relationship they might have had and everything. But if we are to believe that Julie was talking about Ken, and the question was, if you believe that, do you think it's possible then that he might have other women who have disappeared in his presence? And an overwhelming number of you said yes. Really, like 95% of you or something like that said yes. So I thought that that was something that you know, that I needed to bring up. Of course, I bring up the polls every week. Of course, the question is, was it he who was actually harassing her? Of course, we know that he has a criminal record that could point to that, easy to understand, but we just aren't 100% sure. So I appreciate everybody who took part in that poll. And if you are watching this later and have never taken part in any of the polls that Unfound has had in the discussion group, I urge you to, of course, join the discussion group if you aren't in there on Facebook, and then you can scroll down and find all of the polls that have ever been conducted since we started doing that, and we've been doing that for quite a while now. Just a few things that'll be coming up. Of course, we're going to have hey, Christina, what's going on? Of course, we're going to have an episode this Friday. It's the disappearance of Stephanie Clemons, who disappeared once again, a fairly new disappearance from last year, May 20th, 2018. And I'll be talking about it in depth later in this show. But, and I'm thinking, you know, of course, next week, which would be August 23rd, we'll have a regular episode. Then August 30th, I'm anticipating having a regular episode. But then after that, the next 2 weeks will be, I'm thinking, the third anniversary show, in which I will replay the first episode that ever aired for Unfound, which is the disappearance of Suzanne Lau, Susie Lau. My interview with her mother, Mary, who, of course, continues to be a huge supporter of the program. That will be one Friday. And then the other Friday, the episode which will take place September 13th, Friday the 13th in September, that will be the update episode, and that will actually take place while I am in Canada, because I got some things I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going to Canada on September 7th with my dad, my best friend Doug, and his son. So I'm guessing that I will have Wi-Fi up there, but of course it's, you know, fishing time and guide time and all of that. But I might be able to get in a live show while I'm up there. We'll just have to see. I don't know. But so we'll have a third anniversary show followed by an update show. And then the next Friday, which should be the 20th, I'm thinking we will be back to regular programming. I'm thinking. That's what I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. So I just wanted to let all of you know about that. Of course, I have a lot of updates to do. In fact, I will probably start recording that this weekend in anticipation, so I can get, just to be honest, get it out of the way. Hello, Angel. What's going on? So there you go. We got an anniversary episode the first Friday in September, and then the update episode the second Friday in September. Heather, what's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you, Heather. So there's that. And like I said, in Canada, we'll see. I'll just have to see what kind of connection. I know the place we're going does have internet access. I don't know how fast it is. I forget. I haven't been there for a few years. I don't know if we'll be able to do any video streaming, but it would be cool to get together with all of you on that Wednesday night, which I guess would be September 11th. There you go. I know Cherie is pointing out patreon.com if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter. Whether it's just $2 a month, where you get a free ebook and you get access to all of the blogs that I write for every episode that Unfound does. And you can contribute the whole way up to $20 a month, which means that automatically when the new books come out, you get it hardback automatically. I just have your address and I just ship it to you, and you just get it in the mail with a signature from me. But to get into the think tank, of course, something that all of you now know about, you must be at the $12 a month level in Patreon to become a member of the think tank. And even if you can't, take part on Wednesday nights or Sunday nights, you will get the link to what we talk about, and you can watch it. And it's a very, very exclusive, very small group of people. So I hope some of you will consider that on Patreon. And speaking of something else, while I'm talking about it, Jill says it's worth it. I think it is. I certainly, of course, think it is, Jill. We always have very, very good discussions. Marcus says Canada, Unfound Live goes international. That would be cool, Marcus. I would just have to see. I won't know until I get up there and see what kind of connection they have up there. We'll just have to see. I do happen to remember the last time that we were at these cottages on Rice Lake in Canada. You can look it up. That we were able to watch pirate games with my MLB account. So the Wi-Fi there must have been fast enough to watch video of a baseball game. So I'm thinking we should be good, but we'll just have to see. Carrie says we do so much brainstorming in the think tank. We surely do. I will have to admit, sometimes after we're done, my brain does hurt a little bit. I need to take a break. And Marcus says he likes the sound of us going international. Me too. Cherie says think tank is a lot of fun and also educational. Yes. Well, something I want to bring up right now, because I was asked about this in the group by a guy named Tom. He says, you should write books, Ed. And I said, well, I have 6 books out now. And I have to tell you that just recently I had a discussion with somebody who I think is going to be very helpful in probably publicizing a lot of these things, because I just don't have time to do it. But yes, I do have books. I have them sitting on this bed, actually behind me. These books, what is this? Volume 5, right there. And this is what? Volume 3. I have 6 books out. So even if you'd like a book from me, contact me privately. The books are $10 plus shipping, and I will sign one for you, put a little note in it, and send it to you. Or you can go to Amazon, and if you're into just have like a Kindle, you can go get the books on Kindle. I guess I don't talk about the books, but as much as I should. Of course, I mention them during every episode. But Tom asked me, you should write a book. And I said, well, actually, I've done 6 books. So, and that's not his fault. It's my fault. Okay, I just want to make that clear. If somebody doesn't know about something like that, it's me. I don't know how new he is to the show or anything like that. But, I did post the links for him in the discussion group. Cherie says, I'm a huge fan of the RCMP. I know I'm weird. Jim Smith or Smythe is the greatest of all time of interrogators. Okay, I have to admit, Cherie, I don't even know who he is. Next, I'm going to throw this out there right now, and also it's going to be on Friday's episode. I am going to be in Orlando from August 29th to September 2nd. Is that right? Wait, let me think about that. August, maybe 28th. What is it? I'm going to have to think about this. 30th, 28th. Yes. What's today? The 14th, 16th, 23rd, 30th. Okay. I'm going to be in Orlando from the 29th to the 2nd for a disc golf tournament in Orlando, Florida. And if there are any listeners out there, I will have time on Thursday evening, Friday evening, Saturday evening after 2 rounds of the tournament are over. We'll not have any time on Sunday evening because we'll be doing the think tank on Sunday evening. But on the evening of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I will be over there. If anybody lives in that area, any listeners live in the Orlando area and would like to get together, you can contact me privately either through the email unfoundpodcast@gmail.com or through Facebook, of course. Maybe we can make something happen spontaneously. I don't know. A small group, Maybe something like that. I'm going to put that out there. Of course, that's a couple weeks from now. But I will be over there for a disc golf tournament for a few days, actually quite a few days. And I'll still be able to, I'm still going to be trying to do work and everything. But if you'd like to get together for a few hours on one of those evenings, that would be cool. Chrissy says, I had no idea about your books. I'm definitely interested in purchasing them. Well, Chrissy, you have a few ways you can do that. You can contact me privately through unfoundpodcast@gmail.com or through Facebook. If you'd like me to send one or more books to you, we can work out some sort of shipping and payment that way. Or you can just go directly to Amazon.com and just do a search for Ed Densel and Unfound, and all the books should pop up. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. I deeply appreciate it. The Doe Patrol says, my great-grandfather was of this RCMP. Jill says, Ed solves the Jennifer Kessie disappearance, not murder, Jill, disappearance while playing disc golf. I called it here first. That's funny, Jill. Actually, I have been to that apartment complex where she lived, and I've been to the complex where her car was found. I've been to both. I've actually parked my car in the exact space where her car was found. So I've been over there. It's been a couple years, but I've been over there, and maybe while I'm over there, maybe I can make that happen and do a little picture and video for you. We'll just have to see how much time I have. Mimi, that's awesome. Paula, how are you? I didn't know you were in here. Made it. Sorry I'm late. No problem, Paula. And Heather, you should tell them about the shirts as well. We get that question a lot. Well, here we go. All you have to do to get shirts, and once again, I think within the next month or two, this is all going to be a little easier to understand. Yes, please private message me, Chrissy. That would be best. Shirts are available at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com. I know I hate the address, but I'm working on, like I said, working on something. I had a long conversation with somebody earlier this week who has just contacted me out of the blue, a listener who has a lot of experience in these types of areas, just out of the blue, that I'm hoping is going to be able to handle some of these things, because once again, I got a lot of things going on, as if you can't tell. But the shirts are available at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com. All of them up until maybe 6 episodes ago, something like that. And of course, I have a shirt like this for season 1, a shirt for season 2, and I'm in the process of making a shirt for season number 3. So I think these are the types of things that are going to get sorted out and a little bit more organized, a little more higher profile before the end of the year. The Doe Patrol says, Kessie case is disturbing as heck, so sad. LaFord, so true, the Doe Patrol, but Ed called it. It really like his theory on her disappearance. LaFord, you're funny you should mention that. I like my theory too. Okay. All right. Nice job. Don't break your arms patting yourself on the back, Ed. Okay. Let's go to a question. This same guy, Tom, who didn't know about the books, and even though I mention them every episode, once again, this is something I really need to improve on. He asked me, how many hours does Unfound take up per week? Lots of hours. Lots of hours. Just for one episode, probably 20 hours. Between phone calls and typing up the notes and then listening to the phone call again and maybe talking to them again and talking to Emily about the case and writing what I have to write for every episode, which of course is not very much, but I have to put an interview outline together and then record it and make sure the audio is good and all of those things. Probably an episode itself is like 20 hours. And you think, well, that's no big deal. You only do 1 hour episode a week, 20 hours a week. That's not a big deal. Well, then you add on everything else, of course, do the think tank, I do this show. I write the blog, which of course takes quite a bit of time because every one of them is about 3,000 words. Of course, I do the newsletter, which takes a lot. Of course, that's once a month, but that takes up a lot of time. Putting all the books together, going through the transcriptions, writing my part of it, designing the covers, everything. It's a lot of work, and I love it. I love it. I do. I really do. There's nothing else that I wish I was doing, with my life. In fact, just a few weeks ago, um, I was talking to someone, and they asked me something along the lines, what would you do, um, to change your life for the better and everything else. And I told this person, I have made so many crazy decisions, and I have made so many bad choices and everything else. To be in this position at the age of 49 years old, and being able to help people and to have a lot of new friends and people that I trust and everything else, to know all of the things that I've made mistakes on and everything else, to be in this position at 49 years old, you don't know how fortunate I feel. You really, really don't. So, when somebody asks me a question like, though, well, I feel fortunate just to be, where I am, in contrast to where I could have been, which is not even close to this. So, so all of the hours that I put into this, I have to say, there's that saying, be a happy warrior, even though what you're dealing with is, um, very tough stuff. I think I'm a very happy warrior when it comes to this. Even though I deal with very tough topic, I'm up for it every day. So the hours that I put in for Unfound are well worth it, because I know easily I could have easily found myself in a position where I would be doing some job that I hate. That easily could have happened. So, there you go. And so, Tom, if you're out there, maybe you'll catch this video later. That's my answer. It's a lot of hours, 60 hours, 70 hours. I don't know. I work on Unfound every day of the week, every day. So, there's that. Um, yes. Carrie says, if any of us counted the hours that research ourselves, we would be exhausted. Can't imagine how many Ed does. Well, that's true. And also many, many cases in the works. Yeah, that's really probably, Cherie is right. What really adds, the hours stack up is because generally I'm working on 3 or 4 cases at one time. That's really the thing. And in fact, Emily recently has been finding a lot of people. I've been spending a lot of time on the phone, and so even it's probably even more than that right at this second. So you're right. Also, and we have things that, of course, Cherie is doing something behind the scenes. Emily's always doing her work. I have another person that's looking into something for me. So other people, are working too. But I'm the only guy that does it full time. Casey, what's going on? First time viewer. That's awesome, Casey. I love seeing the first time viewers. Thank you for that. Yes, and I take every former guest call. They call, I answer. So, Christy says, blessing to be able to do what you love and help people at the same time. I'm doing God's work. Well, I certainly could help. Knowing how some of the other things that have gone on in my life, I think that, yes, I should be doing a little bit of God's work right now. I might need a little help, if you know what I'm saying. So there's that. But yes, so the hours don't bother me. I know when my dad was here for 2 weeks, he's just like, I don't really understand how many hours you put into this. And I just said, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, there's that. I think he gets a little frustrated with it. And and as I tell them, if you want your son to be somebody, that's helping people, if you want your son to fulfill the goals that you instilled in him as a little boy about helping others and being a good person and everything, this is what you get. This is the way it goes. you know. So, and I'm happy to do it. So there you go. Lots of hours, Tom. I'd say 60 hours, maybe even more than that. Let me see what I got going on here. Okay, let me talk about this for a little bit. This was interesting to me. My sister, you know that I have two brothers and a sister. They are my biological siblings. However, they were raised by my biological parents, whereas I was given up for adoption. And when I talk about my parents, Ed and Loretta Densel, of course, my mother died last year. My biological mother died last year as well. But my sister Diane is in a book group, and the book for this month, I guess, is the Israel Keys book, the serial killer Israel Keys. And Oakley, what's going on? Thank you, Joyce. And so she called me to let me know that this is the book that they were covering. Somebody picked it out in their book club, and that's what they're reading. And she wanted to talk to me about it. Now, you should know, my sister Diane is not what I would call, a big true crime person. Maybe she watches, the ID channel or something once in a while, but I don't know if she listens to any of my episodes. I really don't ask. If she does, that's great. If she doesn't, that's fine too. She has her own hobbies and interests and everything else. So it was interesting to talk to her about Israel Keys, being that I'm not sure, she had ever heard of him before. And so it's always interesting to me to be able to talk to somebody, especially like my sister, who I know, of course, very, very, very well. I've known her for about 25 years now. It seems like yesterday we met for the first time. So it's interesting to me to talk to somebody who is talking about true crime from like a layman's point of view, in contrast to all of you who are really, really into true crime and have known about Israel Keys for many, many years. And so she kind of, wanted my opinion on it. I told her a lot of the rumors that were out there, telling her about how a lot of people for a while thought that Israel Keys might have been responsible for Tara Grinstead's disappearance. I told her how, even to this day, there are many people, being that we just talked about Jennifer Kesse, there are people who believe he might be responsible for Jennifer Kesse's disappearance. And, I just filled her in on some of these things. And, I gave her some comments and pointers that she could bring back to her book club. And I'm guessing she is the only one in that group who has somebody in their family that does true crime all the time. Didn't mean to make that rhyme. Boy, I just made 3 rhymes: crime, time, and rhyme. How about that? So it was interesting talking to her and telling her that, for example, with Israel Keys, of course, he committed suicide after he got caught. And, telling her that probably, even if he had remained alive, he probably wouldn't have given up all of the people that he killed. I told her that although I am not an Israel Keys expert by any means, I don't think I know any but more about it than any of you do that have followed it. I don't have time to really concentrate on anything that's really outside of Unfound stuff. But I just told her that, if anybody in your group is thinking, had he lived, he might have given up all of the people that he murdered, probably not. I think that's one of the things that we've learned in all the disappearance cases, that, mostly men who do these things just never give it up. They just don't, because that's a way for them to continue to control their victim or victims. I also told her that, a lot of times these guys who are labeled as serial killers, they over-exaggerate. They may have only, quote unquote only killed 3 or 4 people, but they'll make it out like they've killed 10 or 15. I think that's very possible in Israel Keys's uh, circumstances. And even though he's very unique, coming down from Alaska, killing a variety of people, and planning these things out seemingly a couple years in advance. I'm more inclined to believe that his number is less, or is fewer than people think. But that's me. And like Cherie says, sometimes they take credit for things that they didn't do. That is surely true, Cherie. And the reason, also in Israel Key's case, why I doubt he's as prolific as a lot of people think is we have to remember how he got caught. He killed this one girl and then was using her credit cards. If there is ever a sure way to get caught, it's using a victim's credit cards. But that's what he did. So let's not make him out to be some genius, because he's not. He was just an evil, evil guy. Let's not make him out to be some supervillain like from a James Bond movie or something like that. He was just an evil guy that wanted to kill people. And in the end, he made a mistake like a lot of regular, people do. People, drugs, kill somebody, take their credit cards right down to 7-Eleven and start buying stuff. That's who Israel Keys was, in my mind. Really. Rick, what's going on? Maria, good to see you. Yes, I am a poet, and I didn't know it. Maria says, I always wondered why he screwed up so bad in the end. Well, Maria, that's a good question. I just think that's who he was. On one hand, yes, it does seem like, for example, that couple that he killed up in Vermont, that he planned it in advance. But then he killed the last girl that we believe he killed. I mean, we know he killed her, but we don't know if she was technically the last person he killed. But then he goes and uses her credit cards. Just not smart. Just not smart. And I know a lot of people are going to remember Israel Keys in a different way. I'm just going to remember him as a serial killer, as an evil guy, but not a criminal genius or anything. He was unique. That is true. That doesn't make him smart or intelligent or anything. Cherie says, like Ted Bundy. Well, as I was reading, as I was reading today, just trying to make sure I understood at least the generalities of Israel Keys today when I was getting ready for this show. It does seem that Israel Keys, was a little bit like Ted Bundy, although Israel Keys had a wider demographic of people that he targeted. And I don't know if Ted Bundy planned his things out, it seems, as much as Israel Keys did, at least in that one case. Christy says they get arrogant and brazen and think they're smarter than everybody else. Well, when you start thinking you're smarter than everybody else, that's surely showing how unintelligent you are. I always kind of wondered if he wanted to get caught. Well, being that he committed suicide in prison, I'm going to guess, Carrie, probably that he didn't. But I don't know. Sheree, like I was saying in the think tank, once you know they are a murderer, hard to think of them as anything else. Yeah. Well, Maria, we don't do a lot of swearing in this, so but we get your point. But please refrain from the 4-letter words and stuff. We don't do that in the discussion group, please. So it was interesting talking to her, and I think it's even interesting that a book club would pick out that book to read. I've not read it. In fact, off the top of my head, I don't even know what the title of it is, but she wanted to talk to me about it, and I just kind of filled her in on, my point of view of it. But once again, I'm not an expert on him, and of course, my concentration is disappearances, not necessarily murders. Bundy was an idol of Keys. That is true, Maria. Karika, sorry I'm late. 3:35 here. It's a bank holiday here today. Long week. Well, you're in France. That's totally understandable, Karika. Chrissy, off topic a little, but I once had a neighbor that was chased by Henry Lee Lucas and managed to get away. Well, that's certainly good for her, Chrissy. Yeah, there's a good example. Henry Lee Lucas. There was a guy who um, liked to talk about how many people that he killed, but a lot of them cannot be substantiated. So there's that. But it's really, I don't talk about true crime type of stuff outside of here. Even people that I disc golf with or my trivia team, although I don't go every week and things, people rarely ask me, hey, did you see that thing? What do you think about it, Ed? I really don't get asked those types of questions out in public very much, even though many people know what I do. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if they don't want to ask me about something, that's fine by me. I really don't care. But it is interesting when it does happen, whether it's by my sister or somebody else. Um, yes, Jill, they do exaggerate. Let's move on to something else. I want to talk about the Tiffany Johnson case. That is, the trial is starting, and that is a case that in Texas, and that is a trial that is starting this week. And the reason I want to talk about it a little bit is because I had a chance to talk to Tiffany's aunt Janelle just a couple weeks ago, and in fact, we're planning to do an interview. I'm planning to. What's up, Tamara? We're planning to do an interview. Probably this won't be till September, October, given that there's going to be 2 weeks there, like I said, with the anniversary episode and the update episode. But probably after the trial is over, and we'll see if Chris Revel goes to jail or not. But I just wanted to fill you in on that, being that I have already talked to Tiffany Johnson's aunt Janelle once already. The main suspect in Tiffany's disappearance is Chris Revel, but he is not going on trial for murder. He is actually going on trial for kidnapping. Kidnapping Tiffany, even though to this day she is still missing. That's interesting to me. That here we have a young woman who is missing, and they're only going to charge this guy who they believe did something to her with kidnapping. I don't know, in contrast to, for example, Kamisha Hollis with Marvin Young, who was charged with murder back in June, and of course, he will eventually go into trial, even though she's not been found yet. He's, of course, going to be charged with murder, but Chris Revel is only being charged with kidnapping and a few other things, but nothing, no manslaughter, no murder, no involuntary manslaughter, nothing like that. So that trial just started once again. Maybe the jury selection or something a couple days ago. I don't know if opening statements or anything have been made yet, but I know that Janelle is in the discussion group on Facebook, and I think that she will be posting updates. I know that she wrote something in there today about it. I don't know if she actually technically talked about the trial itself, though. But you should also know that Chris Revel, Revill, he is a suspect in another disappearance case from 10 years ago regarding a woman whose name is Taliba Islam. Our first name, Taalibah, and then Islam, just like the religion, Islam. Well, he was dating Taliba Islam when she disappeared 10 years ago, and now never went to jail for anything concerning her disappearance. It's still an unsolved disappearance. Of course, that's a case certainly I would like to cover on Unfound as well. I have sent a message to a person in Taliba's family. They've not gotten back to me. I don't think they've gotten back to Emily yet either. But, and now we have Tiffany Johnson, who now is also missing. And it's once again a recent disappearance within the last few years. Unfortunately, I did not write down the date and everything in my notes. But I still plan, no matter what happens in the trial, I certainly would still like to have Janelle on the program. I think she knows that. I'm not sure how many facts regarding the disappearance are going to come out in the trial. Probably a lot of them, and we'll be able to talk about that in the interview. What's also interesting about Tiffany's disappearance is so many times we talk about how a person is not known that they're missing for days or weeks. Of course, in the case like in Eric Franks, nobody knew he was missing for 4 or 5 months. Well, in Tiffany's case, they knew almost immediately. And when I say immediately, like within 20 minutes that she was missing, and still she hasn't been found. And that, once again, if you look into the facts of the case and the timeline and everything, you'll know what I mean by that. Sheree says, aggravated kidnapping carries the same sentence as second-degree murder. Easier to prove without the body. I think it's a good move. Maybe. Sheree, unless they can prove that Tiffany went with him willingly, unless that's what the defense is going to say. Carrie, I hope that they publicize the hearing. It would be interesting to see how they prove the case and get a conviction. What a different situation. It certainly is. I hope the prosecutor gets to bring that evidence in. Cherie, there's no reasonable doubt in my mind, and I'm very, very pro-defense. Wow, that is amazing to know that fast. Yes, because what happened was that Chris went over to the apartment complex where Tiffany lived with her brother. Her brother was like up on the second floor, and Tiffany and Chris were arguing. And then they kind of went around. They went out of sight. They walked out of sight of her brother. And he waited for a couple minutes, and then he got a little suspicious, went downstairs, went around the corner, and right at that moment, Chris was shutting the trunk of his car. He got in his car and took off. Right away, Tiffany's brother called him. First of all, the brother looked around for Tiffany. Where is she? Then he called Chris and talked to him, and then Chris came back a couple hours later. So once again, within minutes, the brother figured out, hey, something's going on here. And still, Tiffany is missing. Unbelievable. We always, we get so caught up in talking about how those first few hours of a disappearance are so important. And then now we have a case where somebody within minutes figured out somebody was missing. And at least till now, it hasn't mattered too much. It's amazing. It's really, really stunning. And they even have pings, I understand, of Chris's phone. I'm sure that'll come out in the trial. And still, she is missing. And of course, Chris has pled not guilty. Cherie says, sorry, I've been following Tiffany's disappearance from the beginning. I've got a lot of ideas. That's great. The prior is huge. Cherie, well, maybe edit, but if they can't get him on kidnapping, they surely can't get him on murder. Well, that may be. I'm just wondering. I guess what I'm saying, Cherie, is that, except for a couple of Unfound cases, none of these cases have been taken to trial. And you know how I feel that some prosecutors play it a little too safe. And Tad Tobias over 2 years ago, and he and I talked about that. It's just interesting when you do then get one that gets brought to trial. Of course, with Kamisha Hollis's case, it's murder. But in this one, it's kidnapping. Maybe it's a good move. It may be. I guess we shall see. But we'll see. Carrie, usually prior bad acts get excluded from being used, sadly. Well, that's true. I don't know if that will be Taliba Islam in her disappearance will be allowed in or not. Carrie, Paula, They have to bring the charges they think they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's true, Paula. The better case is kidnapping. That's what I'm saying. It's true. On the other hand, I'm wondering if kidnapping is such a good choice. I'm wondering why more prosecutors don't do it. And maybe it could be that laws in Texas are just different from many other states. Possible. Let me just check here and see. Let me see something here very quickly. Emily has sent me a message. I want to see. Mm-hmm. Hmm. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. Okay. Let's get back to the show. All right. So we have. I want all of you though, even if you don't live in Texas, please keep an eye on the Tiffany Johnson trial because I'm anticipating that I will be doing an official interview with her aunt um, Janelle sometime in September. I'm hoping that we can make that happen. Of course, being that the trial was coming up, we thought it best that it was so close that we thought it best just to wait and see what happens afterwards. Then we can talk about, of course, a lot more facts, more evidence that I'm sure Janelle does not have that will probably come out in the trial. They can try maybe get a conviction now, and if they find her remains, they can also charge him with murder later. Maybe. Once again, I don't know how Texas law works. Carrie, from what I've seen, Texas likes being the one with their foot forward in new prosecution ideas. Yes. And we know how much they like to execute people too, Carrie. Okay. So that's Tiffany Johnson. Like I said, I believe that's going to be a case we will be covering within the next couple months on Unfound. Once again, if Janelle and I can get together on an interview. All right, Jill, here comes the question. Jill, in the group, I'm going to try, I could go on for hours about this, but Jill asked me, how do I feel about people who plagiarize Unfound's work? And this is a good question because just recently I was talking to a blogger who also gets plagiarized quite a bit about this very topic. And let me just read. Current case in Houston, obviously the guy did it, but so far as I know, has only been charged with endangering a child, not murder as of yet. Okay, that must be some case I don't know about, Chrissy. Carrie says, dang right, they have an express lane to death row in Texas. Yes, I know, Carrie. Florida kind of does too. We've been known to execute a few people as well. But regarding plagiarism of Unfound's material, you have to first of all remember something. I don't pay a lot of attention to what other programs do. Usually how I find out about what other true crime podcasts are doing are from you, the listeners, first of all. So if I find out that some other podcast or YouTube channel or something is covering a case that Unfound is covered, I don't find that out first. Once again, usually somebody tells me. Usually what ends up happening is I end up getting like 10 people telling me that. And they will tell me, they covered that case and it really sounds like all they did was listen to your episode and everything. And I have to agree with you. I think that given that it does seem that some cases do get covered by other podcasts or video shows or whatever so quickly after Unfound has done them, there is certainly something going on. There's something going on. I do not believe that that's a coincidence. Yes, you do have a few issues with law enforcement in Texas. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Sheree. So there's that. Now, I will also say that that plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery. I mean, people who stink at what they do, they don't get copied. Only the people who are doing things the right way get copied and get stolen from. And in fact, in talking to this blogger, that's what I tried to remind him. Remember, the reason they're ripping you off is because you do good work. They're not ripping you off because you do horrible work. They're ripping you off because you do great work. And I'd like to think that that's the same thing with Unfound. The reason that other people will do things and practically just spot off, and usually it's not an interview program, it's just one host talking or a couple hosts talking. They'll just rip off what my guests say. That's true. And it's horrible. And it stinks. And it stinks. Jill says Thomas Brown updated today, gone west. I don't know what that means, Jill. But so there's all of that. I think the reason that Unfound does get ripped off, and there are blogs out there that sound all they did was do the transcription of interviews that I did with guests, is because I think that we do the right things the right way. Okay, once again, if we stunk, Unfound would not have a lot of listeners, and nobody would care what we did, and nobody would be ripping us off, because nobody rips off bad stuff. It's just the way it is. Now, having said all that, I will tell you this from a standpoint of professionalism. The reason that true crime podcasters don't get more respect is because of this. The reason that, so many podcasters, are scrambling to make money and everything is because they do not produce original material. The reason that they, keep in mind, I've been doing this for like 3 years, which isn't really that long. I mean, I think most of the very, very popular true crime podcasts that are out there are older than Unfound is. And I realize that Unfound, compared to listeners of other true crime podcasts, my audience isn't as large. And you know what? I'm not even sure I really care about that. I don't. I'm just going to continue to do the program the way that I think it should be done. But, I even know for myself, in talking to a few people who actually are reporters for real, have been doing it for like 30 years, that podcasters just aren't taken seriously because they're seen as being rip-off artists. They are seen as being people who just go to Wikipedia, just go to WebSleuth, just go to the Charlie Project. I mean, no website on the internet gets more ripped off than the Charlie Project. In fact, in the documentary that I was interviewed for, I even state that. No person in true crime gets ripped off more than Megan Good. She doesn't rip off anybody. People rip off her. This is why I think the true crime podcasters, struggle for credibility. And if they do get any credibility, it's for sensationalism. It's for rumors and theories and crazy stuff that really isn't what I would call true digging down and reporting. Okay? This is why that we don't rip anybody off on Unfound. Emily, myself, Cherie, Eric, whoever else that has helped behind the scenes with the program, we go right to the source. We go right to the families. We talk to them. You get to hear from them. You get to hear from them. And I can't tell you how many times my guests have told me, I hate it when these programs do a show about my missing daughter, my missing son, and never consult me. It's the very reason, for example, Monica Button, Nico Lisi's mother, the reason she came on Unfound is because there were so many programs out there that were covering her son's disappearance and never talking to her. That is the reason she came on, because she finally found somebody that cared what she had to say and was willing to sit there for 2.5 hours and talk to her and just let her um, talk about the truth of Nico's disappearance. Now, of course, I'm still frustrated that she didn't want to talk about the people that lived on the street and these addresses. I'm still a little upset about that. I love Monica. I think that she's doing a great job publicizing her son's disappearance. But from a journalistic standpoint, I wish that she would have told we could have talked about those things. But she came on Unfound because she knew I would give her a venue to speak. And I would just get out of the way and just ask a few questions, and she could do the talking. And to me, that is the job of a reporter. Whether it was 60 Minutes or Charlie Rose or anything else, you as the reporter, you're not supposed to be the star. Your guest is the star. The topic is the star. You sit back, you help those people get the information out because you're the one that has the experience of getting the information out and talking to so many people. But that's why Unfound gets ripped off so much. But I think true crime podcasting as a whole, I still think lacks some credibility. And like I said, the reporters that I've gotten to know, you know what? I kind of think I had to work through it a little bit. I actually think that I think that there's a negative connotation that goes along with it. Oh, these people, all they do is talk about crazy theories, and all they do is riff people off, on and on and on and on and on. And so, oftentimes, when I get to talk to a reporter for the first time, I have to assure them, I don't do that. Okay, I don't do that. So, how do I feel about it? I'm not bothered. Jill asked the question. I'm not necessarily bothered by it because I think plagiarism is the sincerest form of flattery. It's not like I'm going to sue these people or anything else. I just think they're losers. That's what I think. And I think that the way that we go about things is the honest, moral, legal way to do things. But I think that doing plagiarism and all these things and just going to Wikipedia, it's lazy and everything else. And that's why, I just don't know if it's something that we really have to break through. I would compare it to like cycling, like the Tour de France with Lance Armstrong and everything. Everybody's following the Tour de France and how great it is. And then there's these huge doping scandals and everything. And what happens? The entire sport gets, a bad mark put on them. And now, even to this day, a lot of people are suspicious. Are these cyclists really real, or are they all doped up? It's the same way with podcasting for true crime. I don't think that many people in what we do are seen as true reporters going out and getting new, solid information. And they're just seen as spouting off what's already out there. And we have, once again, we have a bunch of podcasters struggling to make money and everything. Well, the people who do it for a real living and have gone to journalism school and are on all the big stations and everything else, they do make good money because they don't rip people off. So there's that. The Dope Patrol. I've had people direct quote my written words on a case in their YouTube and not give me credit, so I just thank them in the comments. Okay. Okay, exactly. They want to shortcut it, but still want fame money out of it. Most don't put heart into it. Chrissy says, kind of stupid to rip off someone who does investigative reporting people these days. And the reason they do it is because they want the attention, they want the fame and and everything else. That's why they do it. Carrie, and don't want credit where they get information from. The Doe, Megan deserves more credit and she should be funded properly. All those YouTubers who don't give back to her, I know one who does. Jasmine, give people the credit when it's due. Cherie, also programs that hold on to cases until there is movement. Cherie, don't even get me started on that. EB, anyone else have trouble hearing? I don't think so, EB. Paula, what's the status of the documentary? Can you share more now? Paula, I don't know what the status of the documentary is right at this second. I'm sure it will not be out this year. The Dope Patrol. A good point. All those makeup YouTubers, true crime want to be stars. I never thought of it that way. It's true. Do you think that since yours is an interview versus script, it's different? Well, I do have a small script. I mean, the stuff you hear at the beginning, of course, the opening before the music, and then my theme and all that stuff. Yes, I do read from a script. But the interviews that are done are just outlines. And as you hear, oftentimes in the interviews, the guests say things that I've never heard before. And that's how it happens sometimes. And I think that's good. Do you think that since yours is an interview versus script, it's different? Well, Joe, I think so. I think that I think that I think that sorry to hear that you're having a problem hearing it, Joyce. I don't know. I wish somebody would have told me this about an hour ago. But I don't know what I can do now. Maybe I'll turn it up just a little bit. I just really fear an echo. I think it is different, Jill, because if you want to do an hour program, if you don't have any original material, you're not going to make it to an hour. You're just not. So that does, but the way we do things at Unfound, it's more difficult. You got to find people to talk to. You got to arrange in time to talk to them. You got to talk to them a few times. You have to print out an outline. You got to schedule that time to do an interview. You got to make sure that it sounds right. Whereas people who don't interview anybody, they can just go to Wikipedia and pick up any topic they want every week. Just like that. Karen, Megan Good deserves more credit for her work. I've heard of Charlie Project, but never heard her name until you said it. Yes, Megan Good. Pamela, hard to hear. I don't know what to tell you. Some people have no problems, and some people have problems. I'm sorry to hear that. Kayla, I actually made it in time for once. Hello, Kayla. How are you? Well, we're almost done, unfortunately, Kayla, and you caught me in the middle of a little bit of a rant. Joyce says her HP computer is usually good, sound is poor. I'm sorry to hear that, Joyce. That makes me feel bad. But I'm talking loud too, so I don't know what's going on. But that's my answer, Jill. I don't think this is new to anybody. I know that I talked about it a little bit. I think that this goes right along with like CrimeCon and those things that these people that do that stuff, I just can't be seen around them. I just can't. I'm not saying they're not decent people and they're good fathers and mothers and wives and husbands and everything else, but when it comes to what we do, and if this is a real job, which it is, then if you believe you are doing things the right way, then you cannot be seen around people who are doing it the wrong way. It's no different, once again, than an athlete who's never taken any steroids and everything else. You cannot hang out with athletes who do use steroids, or you being with them is not going to make them look better. It's only going to make you look worse. That's the way the world is. That's the way it is. So, Kayla says it's usually not as loud on the laptop versus phone in my experience. I don't know what to tell you, Kayla, but I'm talking loud. I know that we have to just watch. It seems with this Wirecast thing that you get an echo, and I hate using it, but Wirecast is the only way I can do the program. Jill, so I hope that answers your question. I think just in general, I don't get mad at it. There's no way I can stop it. I see it as a form of flattery, and I'm just going to keep doing things the same way because it's really not what about everybody else is doing. It's only about what we're doing. So there you go. Let's talk about man, I wanted to talk about that, but it's already over an hour. Let's talk about this Friday's case, the disappearance of Stephanie Clemons. Her disappearance happened on May 20th of 2018. It happened in Miramar, Florida, which is over on the Atlantic coast. Once again, another Florida case. And the interview for this episode is her sister, Sylvia Ray, R-A-Y. The episode's title is called Triangle of Control. Because at the time of her disappearance, Stephanie was involved in a relationship triangle between the guy that she was married to, whose name is Jack Tiger, nicknamed Tiger, Freeman, and another woman whose name is Anne. They were in this triangle, whereas Jack and Stephanie were married, but Jack was living with Anne. Okay, and this wasn't a love triangle. It was a triangle of something else, and it certainly had to do with control and what I believe to be the control that Jack was trying to exert on Stephanie. And I think in this episode, at least in my summation, for some of you, you may hear a new term that's been around actually for a long time, but the term is gaslighting. And what that means is to purposefully try to drive another person nuts by messing around with their perception of the world. So maybe, for example, if a person leaves their house and you have a way to break into it, you get in there, maybe you turn on all the lights, you turn on the TV, you rearrange the furniture, and then you leave. And so when that person comes home, everything's been changed around, but there's no signs that anybody was ever there. That is known as one form of gaslighting. And continuing to do this, and once again, trying to mess with a person's perception of reality. And that term comes from originally a British play, and then that play was turned into two movies from 1940 and 1944. And it's the reason it's called gaslighting is because the movie and the plays were called Gaslight. And the reason they're called Gaslight is because the husband is trying to drive his wife nuts by playing around with the gaslights in their home, brightening them and dimming them as if they are acting on their own instead of him actually doing it. And of course, making her question, if she is losing her mind. And so I think that's what I talk about in my summation, but I want you to be thinking of that as you listen to this episode, because it's clear to me at least that Jack was trying to gaslight Stephanie. I think he was playing mind games with her, and he was doing things very much like in the movie. And even the movie and the play, the main plot of the play and the movies is an unsolved murder. But I think that Jack was trying to gaslight her. And of course, you're probably thinking he's probably a main suspect in her disappearance. And that is true, especially since they had this little triangle thing going on between the three of them, between Stephanie and Jack living with this other woman, Anne. Doe Patrol says, no offense, I don't like cons of any kind. It's a strange group, and I saw bad behavior and rude behavior from YouTubers at CrimeCon this year. Drinking and jealousy, mainly with the girls. And you know what, Doe Patrol? I'm 49 years old. I don't have any time for that. I really don't. Yes. Cherie says, it's too much dramatization and capitalizing for me personally on CrimeCon. Yes. And if you were ever to look up the company that runs CrimeCon, I think you'd also understand why I don't have anything to do with it. The Doe Patrol. Tiger knew Stephanie for 40 years. That is years of gaslighting like Cindy James did for her neighbors to her family. I don't know anything about Cindy James, Doe Patrol, but you're right. Tiger did know Stephanie for 40 years. And I think he was doing that for a long time. Cherie says, way too familiar with gaslighting, unfortunately. Okay. Chrissy says, you've obviously developed and shown yourself trustworthy and honest as well, actually caring that have followed you to track families that need help and trust you and enough to interview with you. I appreciate that, Chrissy. Doe Patrol says she has the movie with Ingrid Bergman. I've never seen it, Doe Patrol. I've never seen it. East Sterling, what's the deal in Florida? So many cases from that state. Well, it is the third most populous state, East Sterling. So there is that. We have a lot of people that live here. It's the third most populous state after California and Texas. And of course, we've covered many cases in Texas. We've covered many cases in California. Joyce says, I've never heard anything on gaslighting. Joyce, you should look it up. It's very interesting. It is now an accepted term in psychology, gaslighting. Gaslighting is a classic characteristic of narcissism. That's true. The Dole Patrol says 48 on August 30th. Why was 49 on August 1st and it was a great day? So there you go. That's Friday's case, the disappearance of Stephanie Clemons. So what did we do tonight? Once again, we're going to remind you of the meetup in Houston, Texas. August 24th, please talk to Cherie about that. The Julie C. poll, where most of you think that it's very possible Ken Roy could be responsible for other disappearances. My discussion with my sister Diane regarding Israel Keys. We have an update episode coming out. We have a third anniversary episode coming out. I'm going to Canada. We'll see if we can do a live show there. I'm going to be in Orlando. If any listeners would like to get together some evening, please contact me, like the 29th, 30th, or 31st. We talked about Tiffany Johnson and that trial that's just started. I took a question from Tom about how many hours I put in for Unfound. I took a question from Jill about plagiarizing of Unfound's material. And then finally, I talked about Stephanie Clemons. That will be the episode for this Friday. So I will be seeing you all. You'll be hearing me on Friday. And then I will see some of you on Sunday night for the think tank. Yes, Paula, you should look gaslighting up. Very interesting topic. There you go. So I'm going to go. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I apologize if some of you had some volume problems. I really don't know what to do about it. Some of you say I sound fine. Others have problems. I don't know how I can manage that on my end. So I don't know. But thank you for joining in. Maybe this will sound a little louder once it's uploaded to YouTube, or once it's available on YouTube, you can listen again. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and making Unfound's live show a part of your life tonight, August 14th, 2019. Good night.